The housing market took a critical hit during the 2008 financial crisis. Evictions and foreclosures occurred, defaults on mortgages were frequent, and property developers lost millions, even leading some to file for bankruptcy. Fast forward to 2022, we are amidst fears of a recession and a major collapse in the property market. This begs the question, will this be another 2008 situation? Stick around as we discuss the current housing market climate, so you can prepare yourself for the coming months. Thanks for supporting our channel. Let's dive right into the video. It's been nearly 2 years since we started trying to predict when everything will finally come crashing down. These past 6 months, however, have shown that downfall has already begun. Increasing interest rates by even 1 or 2% could be enough to devastate the thriving equity markets. Many businesses that saw their stock values increase by twofold during COVID ended up losing all their profits and have returned to their pre-COVID levels. Those that were able to sell their shares prior to the market fall must have had a substantial profit. On the other hand, the fact that most of the equities are owned by the wealthiest 10% of Americans means that a major downturn in the stock market won't be that significant. Everyone, however, is affected negatively if there is a drop in the price of properties because everybody has a place to live or have invested into the real estate market. The cost of housing went up by more than 10% in 2020 and by over 20% the following year. Price increases of this magnitude hadn't been witnessed since the run-up to the financial crisis of 2005 to 2006, when the real estate market nearly brought the entire economy to its knees. Home prices have reached extremely low levels as a result of the Federal Reserve's decision to raise interest rates. Then, many people have wondered if the housing market collapse of 2008 might happen again. Do you think we're on the verge of another similar crisis? To what extent will the crash affect us? We'll talk about the answers to these questions in this video. The present situation is not comparable to the property bubble that occurred in 2008. A variety of reasons contributed to the housing bubble that occurred in 2008. Loose controls on banks led to credit agencies issuing mortgage-backed loans that were given excessively high ratings. AAA ratings were granted to a pool of loans that included both high-quality ones and high-risk ones. According to the story told to the investing public, these assets represent safe, high-quality loans backed by reputable financial powerhouses like AIG. The default of just a few of these loans, however, set off a ripple effect that ultimately brought about the 2008 market collapse and the demise of once mighty corporations like Lehman Brothers and the American International Group, or also known as AIG. Many people mistakenly assume the housing market is strong. This is because of the fact that the current housing bubble isn't being fueled by trash loans or phony AAA ratings. In any case, it's important to remember that no two crises are the same. Each speculative bubble and subsequent financial disaster is unique. After a crisis has occurred and we have worked to resolve it, we will evaluate what went wrong and make an effort to ensure that it does not happen again, at least in the coming years. That's why getting a mortgage has become a lot more difficult since the financial crisis hit the property market in 2008. It would therefore be foolish to assume that the present situation will proceed in precisely the same manner as the last crisis. We must examine the causes of the steep rise in housing prices as well as the likelihood of a future decline. If there are symptoms of this nature, then a crisis might be a possibility. Due to the fall in housing market during the 2008 financial crisis, numerous home builders filed for bankruptcy. Only the most financially sound businesses were able to weather the storm. The housing market was particularly struggling since the government imposed stricter banking rules. causing a precipitous decline in demand for properties. It's been a long time though, and a lot of things have changed. Although banks are still subject to regulation, obtaining a mortgage isn't as challenging as it was immediately following the 2008 catastrophe. With a steady production of new homes in the United States, the housing market started growing at a rate of 1 to 3% annually. However, the numbers show that more builders joined the fray as mortgage rates dropped to record lows and home buyers showed unprecedented enthusiasm. Despite the fact that there was a severe scarcity of housing due to the pandemic beginning in 2021, the number of newly constructed houses increased to the point that it is now almost twice as high as it was before the outbreak. They have started lowering prices in order to make sales now, since the Federal Reserve is essentially hiking interest rates at every available chance. With mortgage rates rising in tandem with the interest rate, we should expect demand to fall as the economy adapts to the new normal. With less interest from buyers, selling a home might be challenging. As a result, it is advisable to reduce prices immediately and begin selling before the Federal Reserve raises interest rates yet again, making it much more challenging to sell. Until about February or March, the situation was completely reversed, with purchasers engaging in a price war in order to secure the acquisition of a particular piece of real estate. Numerous news stories showed that some buyers were willing to pay 20%, 40%, or even 50% more than the asking price for a particular piece of real estate. During this time of great unpredictability, we often found ourselves wondering whether or not the end of the world that we knew and loved was near. There was widespread coverage in the media proclaiming that no one knew when we would be able to return to our regular lives. Due to the fear of being left out, people became terrified and were hesitant to sell their properties. In 2022, where a war in the midst of Europe threatens the established global order, the press no longer pays attention to COVID. Housing sales have resumed, and people are returning to their pre-pandemic routines. There were some folks who waited around for 2 years only to sell their properties. There's no sense in selling today if prices are only going to go up tomorrow. A similar scenario recently occurred in the late 1970s following the Iranian Revolution, when oil cuts generated ripples around the world and increased oil prices. By 1980, the inflation rate had skyrocketed to 13.5%. Up from a staggering 13.3% in 1971. A severe economic downturn then set in. Honestly, based on the data, we can see that a number of factors have caused the situation to worsen significantly since then. To begin, Russia is in no way comparable to Iran. Russia is substantially larger and has a strong economic integration. It's not just an oil exporter, but also the world's biggest provider of natural gas and the biggest source of wheat. And it's currently attacking a nation that is among the top suppliers of wheat as well. In addition, there was no worldwide pandemic during that time period. Therefore, there was no need to print massive amounts of dollars in order to force people to remain indoors. The interest rate was initially increased to somewhere around 10%. And then it was boosted to 19% by January 1981. Consider for a second how much more expensive mortgage rates today would be if the interest rate was 19%. My prediction is that the number of people applying for mortgages will fall so dramatically that property developers will begin filing for bankruptcy once again, just as they had in 2008 or 2009. Since there would be no buyers left, developers will have to lower their prices even further. Only customers who pay with cash would be able to make purchases. Furthermore, only 35% of buyers pay in cash, while over 65% use mortgages. When homeowners with poor credit histories started defaulting on their mortgages, home prices dropped by 10 to 20%, contributing to the market meltdown of 2008. People who were genuinely able to pay their mortgages were surprised to learn that a loan for $300,000 was really only worth $150,000. Additionally, they went into default on their mortgages, which further decreased home values because it was inefficient for them to continue making payments on loans that were significantly higher in cost than the actual value of the homes. This identical pattern is now appearing. The value of a home increased by about 20% in the past year. But this year, construction companies are cutting prices significantly. As a direct result of the increase in the cost of obtaining a mortgage, the number of mortgage applications being submitted has decreased, while the number of available properties for sale has increased. Also, if inflation is not going to decline, the Fed will keep increasing interest rates to dampen consumer spending. Additionally, as we've covered in our past videos, there will certainly be a recession. This is because the global economy is on the verge of collapse due to the impending food and energy crisis. What would home buyers who took out mortgage in 2021 do if the cost of their property dropped by 10% or 15%? Will they continue to make payments on their ridiculously expensive mortgages? Perhaps, or perhaps not. In the event that the answer is no, can the Federal Reserve really afford to reduce interest rates? Even after a number of increases in the interest rate, the Fed is unable to bring inflation under control. I seriously doubt that they will take the risk of reducing interest rates in the near future. Everyone is going to have to suffer through this economic downturn. Although the Fed frequently asserts that there are no indications of a recession, the Fed is highly selective in the term it chooses. Whatever the Federal Reserve says usually has the biggest impact. Keep in mind that in 2021, we clearly knew that inflation was out of control. Despite this, the Fed has quelled fears of inflation by insisting it was near impossible for it to get out of control. However, when it did occur, the Federal Reserve did not immediately raise interest rates. Rather, it issued a warning to the market. Nevertheless, the market did not take this information into consideration. Therefore, they issued further caution, but the market once again failed to pay attention. It was only then that it took action and increased the charges. Previously, they stated that the United States is not now experiencing a recession. However, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has recently stated that a recession is a possibility. Since the Federal Reserve's role is to reassure markets and mitigate the effects of the recession, I wouldn't put too much faith in them. It's tough to predict the future, but based on current indicators, we could be headed for a housing market collapse comparable to 2008's financial disaster if things continue in the manner they are right now. Everything will be revealed with the passage of time. Until then, it's all about waiting and preparing. What do you think will happen with the real estate market? Do you believe this will turn out to be another 2008 situation? Give us your thoughts in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like and subscribe. And we'll catch you on the next one.